The following opinions are expressed solely by Abysme and do not necessarily reflect the views held by anyone else on this channel. Hello everybody, this is Abysme. I'm starting with the kind of live recorded portion because what I need to show you provides the context as to why I'm talking about this week's topic, which is derivative content. This is something that happened to me a while ago that I initially wasn't going to share, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized it's important to talk about these things because it is a very big temptation to just kind of brush these types of things under the carpet, and frankly, we do need to talk about them. I know I'm being very cryptic, but let's just get into it here. So this is a Twitter conversation, discussion, disagreement, whatever you want to call it, that I had a while ago, March 23rd, as you can see, that really brings to light a lot of the opposition I see with my opinions on the horror narration community, or whatever you want to call it. And I think it's very telling and would do well, I would do well to explain it kind of step by step here. So if you could bear with me, I'm going to basically kind of go through it. So to start out, I'm retweeting something. I didn't originally see it. Someone I follow linked it, and this is, I know I've kind of censored it out right here, but it's Swamp Dweller's video. You can look it up. I originally redacted this because I didn't want to specifically really call him out. I was just more like making a point of, hey, when people do this, I think it's dumb. Not really to single him out too much, but I mean, at this point, might as well, because you'll see what happens. So, it says here, 5 terrifying real-life cases of vampire serial killers. And he says, tried something new, retweet. I looked at it, and I said, you read other people's stories, slapped true on what is fiction, mimicking what 1,000 other channels do daily. What was new about this? Basically just saying, like, I don't see how that's new. It's the same format as everything else he does, so I'm trying to make that point here. And I gotta do a thing here. Because there's people who respond to this that I don't want being shown on here because it wasn't actually relevant to the discussion. So let's bring this back over. Okay, there we go. So this is the first response by Markbot, at Blue Markbot, as you can see. You realize he meant new for his channel, right? He doesn't usually do things like that. To which I responded, according to his uploads, all he does is, and this is the formula I always talk about, in a number, the word true, blank stories. Werewolf, Scarecrow, Costco, whatever you want to put in there. Everyone's doing it now. He doesn't usually do them, he always does them. And I linked a thing here. Screen capped. You can't really see it, sorry, but hiking stories, skinwalker stories, Bigfoot stuff, like, it's all the same. Number, true, subject, stories. That's it. So, to which Markbot here replies, he was talking about the vampire documentary type topic. You are entirely missing the point. To which I reply, the difference, if any, is negligible. He's reading other people's words with a clickbait title claiming all the info is true. I can see what Markbot here is saying, oh, it's a different topic. But barely. I mean, it's an article that he got from somewhere that someone else wrote, and he's just regurgitating the information. He's not adding to it. He's not giving his interpretation. He's just reading someone else's words, and it's fitting into this format that all of his videos conform to. So, I'm trying to say, look, no, it isn't that different. The difference is negligible. It's like if a Let's Player was doing a lot of first-person shooters and then did an RTS and said, look how different my content is on this video. Well, not really. You're just playing video games. That's what you do. So that's what I'm calling him out for. Not, again, it wasn't specifically calling him out, but people rushed to his defense. So, yeah, it's Swamp Dweller. And then Vidith22 jumps in and says, Yet, interestingly enough, you're still intimidated by the success of him, rather than being happy for another creator. This is where it derails, pretty early on. And I want to keep everyone in mind that the original thing I said was, this content is not that different. I'm not attacking Swamp Dweller directly. I'm not insulting him. I'm not doing any type of ad hominem. I'm talking about his content. That's it. And I want you guys to keep track in your head how many times a response to me on this topic is an ad hominem against me, or it's like, it has nothing to do with what I was saying. So, I may keep a counter, I may not, but yeah, here we go. So here, Vidith is saying, I'm jealous, or I'm intimidated, which has nothing to do with what I said, number one. It does not address the fact of whether his content is different in the most recent video at the time. I'm jealous. So, I respond with, about as happy as I am for reaction channels. You have somehow misconstrued happiness for criticism and disapproval. Basically here I'm saying, no, I'm criticizing him. Just because you criticize someone doesn't mean you're automatically jealous. Now, I think reaction channels are stupidly derivative. That doesn't mean I'm jealous of them and how many views they get. So, yeah, whatever. And then Vidith says, what brought you to the point to hate him? He's just doing what he loves like you, no effect on you at all. I never used the word hate. I never insulted Swamp Dweller, sorry. I never used all caps. Like, I just said a very simple thing of this content actually isn't that different. But yeah, oh, you criticize someone, you hate him. Keep this in mind, keep this tone in mind, because this is important. Next one from Vidith is, sometimes being mature is letting go of things that upset you, not going out of your way to criticize. I don't really understand that one to this day. Letting go of the things that upset you. Okay, if I was really upset, and it was, affecting my everyday life, and I couldn't really function properly, sure. Again, not the case here. Implying that I am, really upset by this, and criticism is bad. So it doesn't make any sense. I reply to this with, again, you misconstrue criticism for hate. The trend he follows is lowering the bar for online horror fiction. I wish, I already did a video on this, but I wish you could do more words in Twitter. Obviously you can't, that's the point of the site, it's microblogging. So I just tried to be concise and, what I'm going for. Maybe they didn't get it. Second reply was, being mature is also standing up against things you see as detrimental, which is what I do. Vidith then says, but podcasts with virtually no effort being copy and pasted on your channel isn't lowering. I fail to see that. This is kind of relevant, attacking the quality of my content. No effort, being copy and pasted. Clearly, Vidith doesn't actually listen to what my podcasts are, because yeah, we read stories, but we also discuss them. And there's, original music in there. There's a lot more than just reciting someone else's words. That's but one part of it. There's more to it. So, whatever. There's recycled content, and then there's just lazy content. Again, implying that my channels where I discuss and analyze and criticize stories is lazy. Doing blind readings and trying to talk about stuff on the spot and trying to be a little bit entertaining and then editing hours and hours of content. That's lazy, apparently. It's very clear Vidith did not actually listen to my podcasts. And I reply with, reading stories, then critically analyzing them adds value and enhances literature. Recording word for word is lazy. Kind of what I just said. Yeah, also I make all the music, and yeah, everything I just said. Markbach jumps in and says, your My Little Pony avatar is detrimental to my IQ, and yet I am not forced to look at it, am I? So this is our next ad hominem, not really relevant to the original discussion attack of, back then I had an avatar drawn up by a friend of me as as a My Little Pony because I thought it was funny, and I watch that show now and then, so it's just a cute, fun thing. But equating, oh, your avatar is detrimental because it hurts my IQ, it's stupid. Nothing to do with what I was saying. I'm saying that the assertion from Swamp Dweller, I cannot talk today, I'm sorry. The assertion from Swamp Dweller that his video that follows the same format as the rest of his were somehow different, it wasn't. But somehow attacking my avatar is relevant to that, which it isn't. I'm not forced to look at it, am I? What does that have to do with anything? Was I saying anyone was forced to look at anything? I still don't get that one. Vidith jumps back in. And I apologize, this is kind of nonsensical in its format because there were 3 people talking and Twitter, doesn't really have a good system of showing... I don't have this in 2 different tracks of who's replying to who, so I apologize for that. Without editing audio, adding sound, music, or anything else, the passion is dead as the tone in your voice. I think what he means here is that if you strip away my audio editing and my sound effects and my music and everything else, my voice is bad. And the passion is as dead as the tone in your voice. And he's qualified to measure my passion? Does, again, ad hominem, nothing to do with the original argument here of Swamp Dweller's content. Next reply, if you put so much effort in, why not take the time to find yourself? Criticizing others that can help you. I think this must be like typo written because it doesn't make any sense. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know. I didn't know how to respond to that. And then, okay, this one I think replies to this one. Or this one? I'm sorry, it's hard to tell, but I mean, it still counts. That's just idiotic. Start thinking at IQ level you are presenting yourself to be at. Again, ad hominem, oh, you're dumb, or you sound dumb, or you're trying to sound smart. Not a counter-argument, and I think I say that later on. Okay, I say, building on existing works and adding to it isn't detrimental. Rereading something word for word adds no value. Your opinion on how I express passion is irrelevant. I work hard to add value to stories just beyond reciting. So again, what I already said, if you think I am passionless in how I deliver things or how I talk, utterly irrelevant, and that's subjective. It has no place in this discussion. Here we go. The point of narration brings a story to life that is the point to immerse the reader. This brings on emotion. I think Vidith here is conflating, if the narration is, the voice is good of the narrator, then that brings the story to life and that immerses the reader. Yes, but again, has nothing to do with the original discussion, and just because some listeners like that does not mean that recitation word for word adds value. It's not an interpretation. It barely, maybe kind of, just because you read slightly different from someone else. But that doesn't make, that doesn't add anything. You're just recycling the story. You're not explaining why it's a good story. You're not writing your own story. You're not adapting it into a new story or adapting it into a different format. You're just rereading it. No, yeah, here we go. Stop being dumb is not a counter-argument. I'm not going to mince words with you. I'm proud of that one. It is value enough to those listening. If they get their release from nowhere else, they get it from stories. Again, irrelevant. People liking Swamp Dweller's content is irrelevant to this discussion. And if they like his content, more power to them. I'm not saying whether or not people need to hate Swamp Dweller. I'm saying that his assertion that he was doing something different was wrong. because he follows a formula and he follows a trend, like a lot of channels out there. Whether or not a reader is immersed by him is not the point of this argument. Yeah, okay, just said that. Would you consider criticizing other creators like you a smart move, or even a justified one? Then I'm replying to an earlier thing. Reader's immersion or lack thereof is not the point. Yeah, I already said that. So this one, would you consider criticizing other creators? Yeah. Criticism is good. There's this huge aversion to, especially on YouTube in the horror community, of, you know, criticizing your creator, going, hey, I don't like your content because X. I, you know, think what you're doing and Y is bad. I think what you're doing is bad for this reason, you know, and not just like, oh, you suck. I'm not saying that. I'm giving reasons as to why I take exception to content and trends and techniques and methods. You know, why is this a bad thing? It's, you know, they're jumping in to defend Swamp Dweller. God, I cannot talk. I apologize. Swamp Dweller from, you know, me just saying I disagree. It's very reactionary. It's this knee-jerk reaction of, oh, criticism bad. None of us are doing anything wrong. Don't question the status quo. It's frustrating. But that's why I wanted to bring this up. You know, I don't just bring up shitstorms I've had with people very often. But this is why I'm doing it. You're looking at a mindset right here. The point of it is, your criticism, you know, I'm going to try and find where sorry, 1 second. Okay, yeah, here's where I'm responding to that. If I felt their actions were detrimental to the art form, I would consider it necessary. But it says, the point of it is, your criticism doesn't hold value. There's always someone to hate anything. Your criticism doesn't hold any value because you're just a hater. You know, hate is a word that has utterly lost its meaning. Criticism equals hate. Anything, disagree with anybody, oh, you hate them. You hate what they do. No. That's not true. I don't hate Swamp Dweller. I don't know the guy. I can't hate him because I don't know him. I haven't seen anything he's done that would warrant hate. I don't like what he does, as far as his YouTube content. I take exception to that, but I don't hate him. So this assertion that, you know, your criticism doesn't hold value because it's just hate. No, it does hold value. And, you know, and here I say, actually, just because you don't derive value from it does not mean it is without value. Nowhere have I said hate. And I think this is a response. The problem is you have no reason to act like this in a community where people care for each other. You know, this community where you can't question anybody. This community where people like Mr. Creepypasta steal content and, you know, basically tell the author, oh, well, you didn't register it with the Copyright Office, so I don't actually know that you own it. Where narrators just take stories willy-nilly and then they get copyright strikes and then complain that, you know, people are targeting them. And yeah, there are copyright strikes out there that are falsely done, and, you know, they're used for just to harass people, and that's wrong. But you know, this community is so vitriolic. It is so tribal. You know, you say one thing, and then two people jump in and start insulting your content. You know, saying, "Oh, you're just hating." They absolutely do not want to listen to what I'm saying here. It's very, you know, it's very telling. Moving on. Yet that's exactly what you did when you collaborated with narration channels. Hypocritical much? I think this is in... I don't know what this is in response to. Again, I apologize. I can't really go back and find out. I think she's saying here, well, you've done these stories too, therefore you're a hypocrite. To which I respond, and I'll show it. Oh, here it is right here. Which I stopped doing long ago because I started to realize the folly in it. Chronology much? I was getting a little bit incensed at this point, so I'm kind of giving some back sass, but yeah, I used to be a narrator. I stopped because I didn't like it. I was burned out. I felt bad, you know, just doing very, very derivative content. You know, derivative content's fine, and I'll explain why in the second portion of this video, but I can't, I have to do something more original. I had to do something that was more than just recitation. That's why I stopped. So if MarkBot had bothered to look when the last time I did a narration like that was, which was, what, half a year ago or something? It's been a while. So that, whatever. One last thing here. Oh yeah, in this response to this whole, we're a community, people care for each other. That's a typo. So because people care for each other, no one is allowed to point out faults or shortcomings? To which he says, there's doing so respectfully, then there's the way you pointed it out. To which I say, I stated plainly what he was doing, no curse words, no hate. How is that at all disrespectful? No longer did not get a response to this. And someone just kind of posting a meme here. The palette was up. He's talking about IP rights, whatever. Yeah, that's the end of it. I did not get a response back. This is where it ends. The last two are just people tagging out the end, not really part of the conversation. So this is what will happen. This is what can happen if you decide to speak out against what most of the narration channels are doing these days. I think I've had like one conversation with one big narrator who pretty much admitted, yeah, it's lazy. Or not lazy, like, yeah, it's formulaic. It's, it gets views. And that, fine. If you're gonna do that just for views because it's easy to do content, because you have other channels that didn't make it, and you are, doing this because it's what's trendy and what can get you some success, fine. I'm far be it for me to tell people what they should and shouldn't do on YouTube as far as following trends and bandwagoning. Do it. But be honest about why you're doing it. I find it very hard to believe that these channels that churn out dozens and dozens of stories every video and hours of just reading other people's words, like, they really care. How can you? Can you really narrow down stories that you remember? Kind of like what I was talking about last video. Who's the author? What was the story called? What was it about? What made it good? They don't know. They churn this stuff out. And if people want that, fine. But don't act like when someone criticizes the fact that your stuff is very formulaic and is clearly following a trend, that, it's immune from criticism. I'm calling this stuff out for what it is. Not saying whether or not it's inherently good or bad. I think it is detrimental. But I didn't hate on Swamp Dweller. And I don't hate MarkBot or Vidith for that matter, in case someone wants to chime in with that. I don't know these people on a personal basis. I'm judging them on their content. Yeah, I mean, I was very angry about all this for a while, because it's so frustrating when you're trying to approach the status quo with a critical mind, and people just knee-jerk defend like this. So, yeah, whatever. This will probably happen again. I doubt it'll be the last time. So yeah, here's part 2. Derivative content is that which is based primarily off a pre-existing work. Your video, be it a let's play of a game, review of a movie, or narration of a story, is derivative of the original game, movie, or story respectively. This is a highly common type of content on YouTube. Entire livelihoods are made on derivative videos. It is, of course, possible to make an original piece and then review it, but this is quite uncommon. What makes derivative works so popular? Presumably, it is the insight or interpretation that the content creator brings to the original work. A Let's Player may find ways to break a game. A movie reviewer may break down what went wrong or right in a film to achieve a desired effect upon an audience. A narrator may adapt a story into a script, transform it into a radio play, or even just offer literary criticism. Or they may just recite the story word for word and do minimal editing, which brings me to my next point. Derivative works are not inherently good or bad. That is largely up to the viewer's subjective opinion. However, derivative works can be measured by how much effort goes into their interpretation. This effort and work is what sets major undertakings apart from formulaic offerings. I'll provide some examples.
Here's you. Alright, here's you. I'm gonna do an impression of you, alright? Here's you. Choo choo! Choo choo! Chugga 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 chugga! Ah! Millions are dead!
As you can see, the Sonic video had commentary, text timed to jokes, graphics, and effects, whereas the Limbo video had nothing but gameplay. Now, I'm less critical of Let's Plays because the original work is a video game that is so crucial and operative to the video that too much adaptation ruins the entire point of recording in the first place. But this helps to illustrate which channel put in the most work.
Half in the bag. Well, that was disappointing.
Yeah, after 6 hours of cleaning up blood, all we wanted to do was see Mission Impossible Rogue Nation.
Yeah.
Even though the first one was a rubber suit, but it didn't look like a rubber suit.
The rocks don't wrinkle when he moves, like the Michael Chiklis one.
Yeah, and then this one, of course, is an appropriate use for a CGI character.
Yeah, and he looked good.
Don't put a guy in a rubber suit.
Yeah.
Use a CGI character for that. Great. I think the problem here is people want to see a happy, witty, fun action movie with the Fantastic Four. And
Movies, like video games, can't be adapted so far that they lose the audience, but there is a bigger discrepancy between who is putting in more effort. Mike, Jay, and Rich of Red Letter Media have constructed a set in a warehouse to film on. They have a running subplot to frame their review with original characters. They speak at length about aspects of the movie, both good and bad, but mostly bad, with editing meant to enhance a joke or emphasize a point. They dedicate almost 20 minutes to discuss and review the movie in this video.
Ring! What just happened was essentially the plot to this movie, and we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Coming. She's gonna get
in this movie, a woman finds herself stuck with 7 days to live after watching the infamous videotape.
So some people stumble across an old VHS tape that's creepy, and if you watch it, you die in 7 days. You all probably know that. What you don't know is this time, this one has tracking issues.
There's just something about static noise and tracking on an old VHS tape that just still scares me.
Now, I grouped these two other reviews together because they are so damn similar. They feature some dude looking straight at the camera with a wall filled with nerd and geek shit behind them and spew out some surface level observations for 5 to 6 minutes. Cut to outro screen. I'm not saying you have to like or dislike any of these channels in particular, but it's very apparent which groups spend more time and energy. Red Letter Media doesn't just review a film, they build an atmosphere and continuity to their videos. These other two, along with countless other channels, do the same thing. Maybe I'm cherry picking, but judging by the thumbnails, these channels aren't just derivative of the film. They're derivative of each other. And don't give me that bullshit excuse of what color font goes against gray the best. It's clickbait.
Waking operative. Disabling cryostasis.
The cryostasis chamber let out the pressure, throwing a steam-like coolant into the air around it with a whistle. The see-through door lifted as the astronaut inside, dressed only in a gray shirt and white pants, fell to the ground. Hitting the metal floor, he took the deepest breath of his entire life.
My boyfriend and I wanted to do something more low-key because he's not 21 yet, and we had a hectic week with class and work. This fell on a Friday. After drinking a little in our apartment, we decided to pack a flask and walk to a little movie theater down the street.
As you saw in the Twitter conversation at the beginning of this video, people in the online horror community get very defensive very quickly. Originally, I had thought to use some notable audio drama channels as they adapt creepypastas into radio plays. Not only do they rework the script, they include multiple voice actors, add music and sound effects, and overall reinterpret the original work. I've seen great channels that adapt creepypastas into short films, a feat I can barely imagine doing personally. This takes a lot of time, effort, creativity, and coordination. But in order to spare those channels that I respect from the crosshairs of unwanted attention, I'm going to insert myself here. Yes, I used to be a creepypasta narrator. It's no big secret, and I've talked about why I've stopped at length, but I still put a lot of work into it. More work than the average narration video by far. I created music with a sci-fi theme. I incorporated sound effects to establish a ship and lab atmosphere. I had a voice actor for the computer and made subtle visual changes from part to part. I made sure to create the best audio quality possible and spent many an hour editing the audio alone. Granted, I did not create the stock footage, but that's still about half of the video being my original work that took a very long time to perfect. Contrast this with Swamp Dweller's video. Static images he didn't make, royalty-free music he didn't make, stories he didn't write, and his voice. Also on the video was a guest narrator reciting other stories they didn't write. Other than putting all these elements together, the only original part is the recitation, or their voice. That's a small fraction to this whole derivative work. To Swamp Dweller's credit, he does use multiple images and has decent audio quality, which is more than most narration channels, but I hope you see my point about effort here. Most narration channels are Miyuji songs, a static image either in the public domain or stolen from someone, and stories the narrator did not author. This is frequently used because it's easy, but that doesn't make it good. Rereading stories word for word with minimal editing is not impressive to me because I know how easy it is. I'll devote a video to that whole process later. Again, I'm not hating on Swamp Dweller, despite what Vidith and Margbot think and claim. I don't know Swamp Dweller and can't possibly have a reason to hate him. However, I can dislike and disapprove of his content and content like his. I see it everywhere. I think a lot of fans believe this type of content to be difficult and deserving of praise, when in reality they just like someone's voice. And that's fine. I'm not here to tell people what to like. But narrators should be more honest about what they're doing. They're scooping up stories by the dozen, rereading them, and putting simple videos together. To conclude, I'm not saying all derivative content is bad and that people shouldn't watch what they like. I can see how someone wouldn't like Ray Gun Readers, my sci-fi podcast. I'm just doing blind readings of science fiction, analyzing and critiquing it along the way, and including original music. I commission the artwork, use some stock footage, and take pictures of the books sometimes. That isn't by any means the most original thing I've ever done, but there's a clear difference between improvising new twists on derivative content with your own unique stamp and sticking to a tired formula. And let's face it, the formula is popular because it works. There are 1,000 narration channels out there reading the same stories using the same music with the same images, inviting each other to do the same thing on each other's channels. It's a stagnant, incestuous circle jerk, if you'll forgive the vulgarity. I love collaboration. I love some derivative works. I love online horror. But if you are going to do any of this, please try to stand out. I don't expect everyone to be an artist, musician, voice actor, and pro video editor. But there is some unique part of your personality you can put into your narrations. Try drawing your own thumbnails, record your own music, shoot some footage. Be better than the average narration channel. Or else we will all continue to be stuck with just average. Thank you for listening. All the original music used here is of my creation. You can check out my music channel if you enjoy that. You can also check out my science fiction podcast, Ray Gun Readers, if you want more story analysis. Thanks again.